Hi, everybody. It's Pastor Rob with today's Bible Break message on 3 things that God requires. My friends, if you're asking yourself, what can I do? How can I help my country? How can I help my family? How can I help my church? Well, the Bible talks to us about that, and God sums it all up in the book of Micah, Micah chapter 6 and verse 8. Now, the book of Micah is in the Old Testament. It's in the back part of your Old Testament. It's in the prophetic. Micah was a prophet. He's in what's called the minor prophets. That means it was a short book. It's not like the baseball where you have the major league and the minor league, the important guys and the unimportant guys. He was just a guy that was straight, short, to the point. But in Micah chapter 6 and verse 8, God gives us a wonderful verse, a powerful verse. He says, "For he hath showed thee, O man, what is good, and what doth the Lord require of thee, but to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God." Now, I want to point out a couple things. This is 3 things, number 1, that God requires. God says, hey, this is expected. This is the expected behavior out of every single one that names the name of Christ, that follows God, that believes in God, that loves the Bible. Number 2, I want to point out to you, this verse says this in Micah 6:8, it's good. Now listen, this is good behavior. This is good citizenship. This is good Christianity. 3 simple things. Number 1, do justly. You know, the Bible says God is a God of justice. What does that mean? That means that God metes out justice. God does what is just. To do what is just is to do what is right. God does what is right to every person and for every person. God says, number 1, I expect my people to do justly. We ought to do right. We ought to be right. We ought to give justice and the just rewards and the just treatment to every single person in our world and in our life. Now listen, there is no place for prejudice. There is no place for bigotry. There's no place for injustice in the household and of the family of God. Number 1, do justly. Number 2, love mercy. Not just to extend mercy, but to love mercy. You know, I've always been amazed by this. Why is it we want mercy for us and justice for somebody else? We want grace for us and wrath for everybody else. God says not only extend mercy, show mercy. In fact, Jesus said, blessed are the merciful. But God says, love mercy. Love it. Love to extend mercy, undeserved goodness, undeserved sparing to other people. Number 1, do justly. Number 2, love mercy. And number 3, walk humbly with thy God. My friends, listen, pride will lift you up and then it'll fall you down. It will destroy you. The pride is always what goes before a fall. Pride brings contention. Pride brings shame. Pride brings sin. God says, listen, there are 3 things that God says are good for each one of us to do. God says there are 3 things that he requires of us. Do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly. May I ask you, are you walking with God? The Bible says that Abraham walked with God, that Noah walked with God. Listen, do you have a walk with God? There is no one weird trick to walking with God and having a life of faith. It is simply to walk with God faithfully, devotedly, every single day for the rest of your life. It's to struggle against sin. It's to get into the scriptures. It's to go against the culture. Listen, my friends, walk humbly with God. Don't be puffed up because you're a Christian. Don't be puffed up because you have the Bible. Don't be all proud of the fact that you know God and you know what's right. Hey, it's just by the grace of God. You could have been born someplace else to some other family, and maybe the gospel would have never reached you. If you're saved, if you know you're on your way to heaven, if you have a copy of the scriptures, you know, it's just by the grace of God. There's a lot of people never had that privilege, never had that opportunity. My friends, maybe you're saying, what can I do right now for my country? Do what God requires. Do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly. Hey, I hope this has been a help to you today. God bless you until we meet again.